Hey, buddy, welcome to Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President.
What is it fantasy, Buff? Will you get out of here?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. I am once again having some issues with my sound, and I have been working on it, and I just cannot figure it out. Before I hit the live button, everything plays just fine. When I test it, everything plays. I can hear it. You'd be able to hear it. But once I hit that live button, for whatever reason, I can't hear it anymore. I don't know what's happening, and I'm not really sure how to fix it. That's something I will have to work on. I've done everything I can do. I guess I'm going to have to make some phone calls and do some troubleshooting. But either way, good morning. Good morning, Peggy. Hope you are having a good day. Happy Friday. I am glad it's Friday, as always. I don't know about you guys. I need a Friday because I've got to get this audio situation sorted out. It completely throws me off when I can't hear anything. It's probably hard for you to imagine, but I'm used to be able to hear myself. And anytime you work, have some type of show type thing that you're doing and you can't hear yourself, it just throws you off. And then I have this echo. It's like everything I say echoes. It's so annoying. Good morning, Kim. And so I'm going to be working on that this weekend. I will get it sorted out by Monday. No question about it. I am so glad it's Friday. It's going to be a really hot weekend. I hope you are all prepared. Heat index is over 100 degrees. We had that little brief period of fall-like weather. That is over. now it's going to be nice and toasty once again. And good morning, Karen. So I hope you guys have some fun weekend plans. It's hard to believe what we're already, gosh, August the 8th. Isn't that insane? And pretty soon, it is going to be fall. It is going to be winter. And then thank God we'll have that spring come back around again. It's the only thing I look forward to is spring and summer. So very happy about that. Good morning, Karen. And a lot to talk about today. As always, it never ends. It's Friday. So we're going to have a little fun with some UFO talk, but lots of other things to cover as well. We're going to be talking about that $50 million reward for a Venezuelan president. Of course, Nicolas Maduro. Not surprising, they kind of have a love-hate relationship back and forth with Venezuela and the White House, and we'll get into that for a couple of minutes. I want to talk about inflammation. Boy, whether you believe it or not, inflammation is the cause of so many different types of illnesses. I've actually read a report that says inflammation is the cause of all disease, all disease. And in every single disease process out there, inflammation plays a role. And what's craziest about it, and when you think about it, when that all inflammation leads to disease or all inflammation affects disease, then you backtrack and you think, okay, well, what causes inflammation? Well, we're doing that to ourselves by what we eat, our lifestyle habits, not sleeping enough. We're going to get into all of those details. Good morning, Dottie. And Dottie says, why is it now heat index instead of actual temperatures? Dottie, I don't know. That's a really good question. I wish we had Dave Murray as our show meteorologist. Wouldn't that be nice? So we could ask him. I don't know. I know back in the day, yes, it was just a temperature. Now they have the feel like temperature. And I think it takes into account that, you could have one day that's 90 degrees and there's no humidity, there's a nice breeze. Gosh, I got something in my eye, and so on. Then you could have another day where it's 90 degrees and there's really high humidity and makes it feel a lot hotter. I don't know, but I do know that I can definitely tell the difference between those really high hot humidity days and the you feel like you're roasting the minute you walk out the door. And then we have those other days where it could be 90 degrees and it's fine. So I don't know, but that's a good question, Dottie, and I would like to know the answer. Good morning, Robert, and good morning, Jay. So, again, lots to talk about today. We're going to jump into these things. You guys are going to think well, you probably already think I'm crazy. You're going to think I'm crazier by the end of the show because we're going to be talking about UFOs and extraterrestrial life. Now, one of the videos I'm going to show you later, we'll do this at the end of the show, you've already seen, but I'm going to show you a new video. I've never seen it. I don't know if you have. All of this centers around Las Vegas, both videos taken in Las Vegas. And I've done a lot of research lately because, of course, Tulsi Gabbard talking about she wants to disclose the UAP files. Of course, UAP is now the new term for the old UFO. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to hear from Senator Kennedy, a video clip that I've had for quite some time that I myself have listened to many times. Like I said yesterday, if you were on the show, I feel like the government has already told us that yes, aliens exist. Yes, there is extraterrestrial life out there. Yes, they do visit our planet, but we just don't like to accept that explanation. Our brain tries to find a way around it. Lori says, I don't like the feel like temp. I will tell myself what it feels like. Just give me the real time. I'm with you, Lori. We don't need anyone to tell us what it feels like. Tell us the temperature. We go outside. We know exactly what it feels like. It feels hot, right? It feels hot. And it is kind of crazy because last year I went camping. I went to that Kid Rock music festival. Oh my goodness. It was hot. It was so hot. I was over a mile away from the camp store and there was no you can't drive. Once you park, they will not let you take your vehicle out of this spot. And it was so hot. It had flooded. They brought all this rock in and they were like, boulders and big chunky rock. I broke both of my sandals the first day walking in that mess. The heat index was 117 and 118 that weekend. And here you are in a tent, you have no air. I drive a Jeep. I had the top off. I didn't even bring the top to the Jeep with me. So the air conditioning did no good sitting in a Jeep with no top on. It was hot. I seriously thought I was going to die numerous times. People did actually die. And I'll tell you what, I do think it makes a difference, with the humidity. It's all about the humidity. But boy, if it's that hot out, just try to stay inside. Try to stay inside. Try to be in a body of water. That's what we did when I was on that camping trip. There was thankfully the river. I was out in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. The river was just maybe the equivalent of a fourth of a mile, maybe from where I was camping. And so I could walk over there. And I missed a lot of the artists at the concert, as did everyone, because we were out there in the water, as were some of the artists that were performing. We were all just sitting out there in this water the entire day because it was the only way to survive. And Robert says, aliens exist, especially Mexicans in California. Oh, different kind, Robert. But speaking of, I saw this video. I'm not really going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but I saw this video on Telegram and I thought I had to show it to you guys. This is Germany. This is Germany. I don't know what is going on in these different European countries where they have all of these people who are there illegally. And a lot of them, I don't know if you can call them illegal because they allowed these people to come into their country. They're not natural born citizens, of course. They refer to them as migrants. They've allowed them to stream into their country. They're definitely taking over at a very fast pace. And for whatever reason, I don't know what the mentality is of Europeans or some of the Europeans in charge, because these people can do no wrong. It doesn't matter what they do. They don't arrest them. They don't go to jail. They can rape somebody, they can murder someone, they can attack police officers, they can sexually assault people, does not matter. They're not going to jail. They're not going to stay in jail. I don't understand it. You can't tell me there's not something bigger going on here. And I've got a video of one of these migrants in Germany, and this guy just assaulted a police officer. He's, vandalizing a police car and they're not doing a darn thing about it. And there's a citizen back there yelling at the police officer, "Hey, do something, shoot him down, go get him." And then the migrant guy just walks off into the sunset. Nobody does a darn thing. And if you are in one of these countries and you go on social media and you post about it, or if you're there in person and you're, carrying on about it, they will arrest you, not the person committing the crime. They will arrest you. And Karen says, I was there. It was brutal, but fun. Oh, I didn't, Karen, I remember you saying you were going, but I never did run into you. It was absolutely brutal, but yes, it was a lot of fun. And of course, anything with Kid Rock is fun. So I'm going to show this video to you because this is absolute insanity.
Jetzt erlebe ich das zum ersten Mal live. Knall, knall! Knallt ihn ab! Jetzt haut er ab! Guck mal, jetzt haut er ab! Ich glaub das nicht!
So the guy just walks off. I can't hear the video, but I've seen it already. I don't know. I'm back here frantically working on my audio settings while you guys are watching the video. I can't get it figured out. But either way, you can see what happened there. You can see the blood on the police officer's face. And he had just been assaulted by this guy, vandalizing the police car. These officers do have weapons. They could have stopped this guy. They just chose not to. I'm sure they were given orders not to do anything. But I can guarantee you, if that was a German citizen and the German citizen had assaulted this police officer, was vandalizing that police car, they would be behind bars right now, or they might even be dead. Absolutely insane. Good morning, Larry. Larry says, yes, it's backwards. The criminals get away and the innocent people are charged. Exactly. That's exactly right. You can't tell me, you cannot convince me, no matter how hard you tried, that there's not a bigger power play going on to where someone or a group of someones is over the European nations saying, we want your countries to become an Islamic caliphate, and you are going to stand down and you're going to let it happen. We want to eliminate all of your natural born citizens, whether they be Irish or English or Scottish or German. We want to eliminate your natural born citizens. We are going to turn your country into an Islamic caliphate, and you are going to stand down and you're going to watch it happen. That is exactly what's happening. Again, you can't convince me anything different. You know who those folks are? I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm going to guess it's the European Union. I'm going to guess that it is what we refer to as the cabal. And why? You might ask why? Why would they do this? Why would they harm their own people? They're not harming their own people. They're not. These are not their people. If you're head of the European Union, if you're a head of NATO, if you are a head of the cabal, your family is not being affected by this. Your family is somewhere safe, being protected, does not hurt them at all. It only hurts the people who are not part of your very high upper class. And so, therefore, these people don't care. They do not care. It's a similar situation here in the United States, where we have groups of African Americans who live in the inner city, who live in a town that's, like a war zone every single night. Gunfire, people getting shot, where a lot of these young men and now, sometimes women don't live to become, 25, 30 years old because they're gunned down before they reach that age. But they continue to vote Democrat. They continue to vote for these old white guys and old white women who they think care about them, but really don't care about them at all. Why? Because those old white guys, those old white women, they don't have children or family members living in these neighborhoods. It's the same scenario here in the United States or over in Europe. There's really no difference. We have the elite class, the cabal, not the wealthy people we know, but the cabal, the people who run this country, the shadow government, the deep state. And they not only run this country, but they run the entire world. What they don't run, though, is BRICS. They do not run BRICS. And that is why NATO hates BRICS. And that is why Russia, you go over to Russia, Putin has made it very clear. if you come into my country and you commit any act of terror, not only will I murder you, but I will take out your entire family. And that, because unfortunately, that's sometimes what you have to do to stop these types of terror incidents in your country. In Russia, they do not put up with it. And it's hard for people to believe because so many Americans have been brainwashed with the old Operation Mockingbird back in the day, which is still, of course, continuing today. But back then, they told you during the Cold War, Russia's bad. They're communist, they're bad. If you associate with Russia or communist, you're going to be penalized, you're going to be thrown in jail, you're going to be found treasonous, you're going to have to hide, because if you associate with Russia, then of course you're a terrible, terrible person and very un-American. Of course, that mentality has been going around our country for a really long time. But in fact, these days, modern day Russia is far more conservative, far more Christian than even the United States. But they don't want you to know that. They have much higher value there on life. You're not seeing these murders happen in the streets like we do here, but no one wants to admit it. People still want to say that Russia is so bad. BRICS is far, far ahead of us. They are. They have. They're gaining on. Well, I should say they've surpassed us. I don't want to say they're gaining us. They've surpassed us. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is kind of falling into that trap. I think sometimes he gets bad advice from some of his advisors, who are probably some of those deep state members that didn't get, drained from the swamp. And he, for whatever reason, is fighting back against BRICS. I say we go back to withdraw from NATO, withdraw from the UN. And hey, how about we join BRICS? How about that? And good morning, Annette. Good morning, Sherry. I think I may have already said that. Larry, Islam is not the religion of peace. People need to read the Quran and the Hadith. And good morning, Dennis. And Robert says, add Sira. Jay says, still a communist country. Well, Jay, Russia hasn't been communist since 1981? Is that right? For a very long time. Not since Putin has run Russia have they been communist. They have not been a communist country for many, many, many years. And I actually know a lot of people who are from Russia who have dual citizenship, and they love living in Russia. They feel like they're more free than we are here in America. They travel back and forth. They're, not overly wealthy, but they do have some wealth, and they love their country. They support Putin. And they're younger, they have never lived under communist rule. And so they don't know. Now, things in Russia, obviously, back in the older days were pretty crazy, but people want to say, oh, the KGB, they're so bad. Well, we have the CIA. I would like to say they're just as bad, maybe worse, but we don't, because we're Americans, we don't think about it in the same way. We've had a Democrat regime running this country for decades. And quite honestly, they've given us the illusion of freedom, but to some degree, we've always lived under their thumb, haven't we? We've never really been free. We don't really know what it's like to truly be free, do we? Because guess what? What we're all going to do today, most of us anyway, is work, right? We're going to work, we're going to pay our taxes, and you're going to get just a tiny bit back. You feel like you're getting more back because they take out your employment taxes, your federal taxes, maybe your city, local taxes, depending on where you live. So let's say today, a lot of people getting paid today on a Friday. Let's just say you get $1,500 paycheck today. That's I think a fairly average American, paycheck every 2 weeks, or less, quite honestly. And then guess what happens? You think, oh, I got my $1,500. They took my federal taxes out, my unemployment taxes, my local state taxes, this and this. I'm unemployed. I'm not unemployed. I'm self-employed. So I don't always know what it is they're taking out, but that sounds correct. And then from there, well, you think, oh, I've got my $1,500, but wait a minute. I've got to go buy groceries. Okay, I go buy my groceries. Oh, $20 and $30 in tax here. I go get my gasoline in my car. Oh, another, I don't know how many cents on the dollar, 10 cents on the dollar, for your taxes for gasoline. I don't even know. And, you're paying your insurance on your home. You're paying your state tax on your home. For me, state tax is about $1,500, $1,600 a month just for me to survive, to live. and have shelter over my head here in the great state of Illinois. 15, I don't even know what it is. I'm scared to look. $1,600 a month. It might even be more than that. It might be closer to $2,000 a month. I'm going to look at that today and talk about that next week. It's a lot. It's a lot of tax per month. And so there goes your check, right? It's gone. Where did it go? Mostly to taxes, because they're going to take a good 75 cents to 80 cents per dollar you earn to go to taxes. And then you think, oh, but I'm so free. But yet the government's taking all your money and you have absolutely zero say over where that money goes. And depending on what state you live in, most likely your tax money is going to pay for abortions. It's going to pay for illegals to have housing, to give money to illegals to open their own business, to give money to for healthcare and food and all of these other amenities for people who maybe aren't working, who are some of them in our country illegally. Where does the money go? It's not going to you. It's not going to your family. We're all stuck in the same trap. We're all stuck in the same trap, and it's just the illusion of freedom. So I'm trying to get my thing to scroll. Just the illusion of freedom. And good morning, Stacy. Good morning, Curtis. And Jay says, tell that to the political prisoners. We all have political prisoners, Jay. Come on, you know that. How many political prisoners and dissenters do you think we're holding in the United States? I remember not too long ago, we had a bunch of J6ers in solitary confinement in our country, right? No difference. There's no difference between us and them. No difference at all. No difference at all. But Jay, I see where you're coming from. And that is why Operation Mockingbird is so successful, because that's exactly what they want you to think. And not just you, but millions of other Americans. That's exactly what they want you to think. And then, but when it comes to America, it's different, right? Oh, we imprisoned the J6ers because the Democrat regime called them insurrectionists, when they really were not, were they? They opened the gates, they opened the doors, they let these people in, but we still arrested them, kept them in solitary confinement. We did not allow them any of their rights as Americans. They were denied their rights. And if you were watching a show I was on back then called The Edge, we interviewed one of the J6ers. We interviewed attorney Al Watkins, who represented the shaman. Remember him? And these people were denied their basic rights while they were held in. Can you imagine being held in solitary confinement for many months, over a year in solitary confinement, simply because you went to Washington, D.C. that day? You went into the Capitol building after they opened the door. You peacefully walked through, and they happen to use facial recognition to see an eyelash, and all of a sudden they know it's you. They come to your home, they raid your house with guns, of course, taking your family prisoner, taking you to prison. You lose your job, maybe your home, maybe every single thing you have, maybe everything you have. And but we're free, right? No, we are not free. We are far from free. And Jay says, because we've allowed our politicians to regulate us into the ground. You couldn't be more right about that. And that's a good thing. We've let them. We have let them do it to us, haven't we? We just lay down and let the politicians make all the laws. And we certainly do. We do. Yeah. And because if we don't lay down and allow the politicians to take advantage of us and to take all of our money, well, guess what? You end up going to prison, don't you? So they know how to get us. They freeze your bank account because their little hands are in everything. They freeze your bank account. They contact your employer. The IRS audits you because their goal is, if you don't comply, you're going to go to prison, or they're going to take everything away from you and you're going to wish you were in prison. Don't think we live in a free society, because we definitely do not. It is all an illusion. And let's see, Robert says, getting anything back is just a reconciliation of overpayment, free loan to the overlords. You got that right, Robert. You know how the system works. And yes, Jay, Illinois taxes are absolutely ridiculous. You get more house for the money, I guess, but in the end, it all kind of averages out. The way I see it, and why I made the decision to move to Illinois, and trust me, I thought about this very, very carefully before choosing to move to Illinois, because I love this. I'm from the Chicago area, so it's not that crazy for me to move back, to Illinois. I'm out by Effingham, so I'm a little bit of a ways away. But I will tell you, that I look at real estate. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I look at real estate ads all the time. I'm still signed up and I still get those emails from all the different real estate agents. And I saw a house again yesterday. I see them all the time. I saw a house yesterday somewhere in, the not St. Louis, but out in the county. And not out in like West County, out in St. Charles County somewhere. And it was an okay house, nothing too crazy. $995,000 and it had 4.5 acres. And I thought, holy cow. Now, of course, the house was not very big. That was the thing. It was like 1,700 square feet. That was it. I'm thinking 1,700 square feet for a house in Missouri. And you're going to be paying, what? I don't know how to work out the math. Probably about $4,500 a month, I'm going to guess, in a house payment. And of course, you're going to have your personal property taxes and everything else. Well, if you come over on the other side to Illinois, you can get a 5,000, 6,000 square foot house with about 5 or 6 acres for about half that price. That's why I came to Illinois, because that's exactly what I did. And so the difference is you can pay all this money out each month and either live in a little tiny house in the state of Missouri, or you can pay the same amount of money and come over to Illinois and live in a great big giant house. So that is the difference for people who wonder. And let's see here. Jay says Illinois pays 48.7. Sorry, my scrolling is not doing as good today. And Jay says Illinois pays 48.7 cents per gallon in gas tax when they charge U.S. sales tax on that same tax. Oh, yeah, they do. It's like, you know what? I go to the gas station and I try not to pay attention. I try not to look because I'm like, I have to get gas one way or the other. Now, I drive back and forth to Missouri all the time for work. So I try to wait and get gas when I'm in Missouri versus Illinois. But, it's high no matter what. And let's see here. Linda says Illinois gas tax like that for over 50 cents a gallon. When I worked, I felt like I had less money. Health insurance, traveling about 25 miles each way. You do have less money because really, in the end, you don't have any money. You don't have any money. They try to make it seem like you have money, but you really don't have any money. And then really, you never own your home, as you guys all know. Not sure what I did here. Property taxes in Chicago are insane. Yes, Jay, but everywhere. I live out in a rural area, like I said, near Effingham, Illinois, and the taxes here I'm not kidding you, they are insane. I'm going to look. I don't have anything here on my desk to look at, but later on, I've never looked at the mortgage payment kind of broken down because I'm too scared to even look, quite honestly. Now, my taxes are built into the mortgage payment, as are my insurances. My insurance isn't really that high, but the taxes are absolutely outrageous. And eventually, this house probably won't be paid off in my lifetime. But once it is paid off, then you know what? Doesn't really matter, does it? Because the majority of the house payment is what? It's taxes and insurance. So there's really no way to earn and own your house. And Jay says Missouri makes up for it in personal property taxes every year. They do. That's why, exactly right, Jay, because you can get a bigger house and more property in Illinois for the same payment. So let's say if you have $2,500 as your limit per month for your house payment, you can go to Missouri. You can live in a nice apartment for $2,500 a month. You can live in a decent home for $2,500 a month, an okay home for $2,500. But when you come over to Illinois for $2,500 a month, you're going to live in a really nice house, a much larger house with a lot more property. So that's kind of where the balance is for any of those considering. That's why so many people, believe it or not, are moving from Missouri into Illinois, from other states into Illinois. People think that's crazy because you're like, who wants to live there under old J.B. Pritzker? I can't stand his rules or his laws or anything else, but I have to say I go about my daily life and it doesn't really affect me very much at all. And everyone in my area is far more conservative than anywhere I lived in Missouri. In Missouri, I lived in St. Louis City. When I first moved there, of course, I lived in West County. Then I lived in St. Louis City and back to West County, back to St. Louis City, back to West County. Finally, I had enough. I moved to St. Charles County. And I'll tell you what, when I moved out to Wing Haven, all of my neighbors were liberal, every single one of them. There was one American flag in my entire neighborhood. They were all liberal. And I'm pretty sure they all hated me and my big American flag. And I couldn't handle it anymore. And here, believe it or not, in Illinois, everybody, this is Trump country. You see Trump signs everywhere. Our local government, our local police force, very much conservative. They're far more conservative here than St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles County. So I am not complaining at all. And let's see here. Annette says house is almost paid for. However, yes, taxes and insurance are still a ball and chain. You got that right. Robert says high taxes. Then why is our government broke? Well, we know why. We are so stupid letting them do this to us. Someday will be a new Tea Party event. There needs to be, Robert, there needs to be. Many days, I think government wants that to happen. I wouldn't be surprised because I think they were trying to bait us into some type of revolution. I really do. And it still probably will happen at some point down the road. They wanted to bait us into a revolution in the same way they wanted to bait us to come to the Capitol building that day because they want us in prison. That's why they want to get rid of us. They seriously want to get rid of us. If you're a conservative person, if you're a Trump supporter, the government wants to get rid of you. And I'm not talking about Donald Trump's administration. I'm talking about the one world government, the deep state, the shadow government that still truly do run this country. And the reason why we pay all these tax dollars in and our country is still broke because we're helping everybody else. We're spending all that money to create wealth for the shadow government, the industrial war complex. You're paying your taxes. Your taxes are not going to, they give you the illusion that this is all for you. Oh, we're going to fix your roads. We're going to give money to your schools. They don't fix the roads. I've been here for, I don't know, a couple years, 3 years now. Nobody's come fix any potholes on my road or any of the roads here in town. They'll come out and they'll put a new divider in, on the highway or do something like that, something that doesn't even need to be done. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Potholes the size of a lake that take your entire tire off when you go through. They don't do a darn thing. Citizens have taken it upon themselves to go out and fix potholes in their communities. Our tax dollars goes to Ukraine. Why? Because to hide their dirty little secrets, of course, the Bidens and the Obamas and all those other folks, the Clintons. Our money goes to fight wars in countries that have absolutely nothing to do with us and don't hurt us either way. And the reason why, because first of all, they don't care about those lives. Well, we kill a couple million people in Iraq, several people in Syria. Look at all the Yemenis we've killed, and all the folks over in Gaza right now being killed. It's a crazy situation, but we do that because every single time we go to war, guess what has to happen? We create weapons, right? We create fighter jets. We create all these different things, and a big kickback goes back to Congress. It goes back to the shadow government. It doesn't come back to us. We just keep funneling it and paying it. Think of yourself as a bee in a beehive where you're going out and doing your job during the day, pollinating flowers. You come home at night, you're making your honey in your hive, and then the government comes through and drains all the honey out of your hive. And then you have to go back out the next day and work again. And you continue that cycle throughout your entire life, going out as your worker bee, collecting your pollen, going back to your beehive, depositing your pollen to create that honey, and then the government continues to keep taking it. And that's the cycle we're all caught in. That's why we're called worker bees, because that's exactly what we are. We're all just worky bees. Jay says, fixing roads in Chicago. If you live in Illinois, all your taxes are either going to support illegals or they're going to support Chicago. No question about it. Illinois depends on where rural counties in Illinois are lower, but go to Cook County or Madison County and try to buy. Right, that's also true. Not too long ago, we had a rental property in Madison County, Illinois, and I'll tell you, I don't even know why people. Well, there's a lot of nice areas in Madison County. It's very, very expensive to rent Madison County. And let's see here, Linda. Our newest neighbors moved from St. Louis. Police employees now working locally, which is nice. And I'm glad that St. Louis City allowed their officers to move out into other areas outside of the city of St. Louis. I'm not going to plan on, well, let's talk about this first, and we're going to go back to that. Jay says, yes, fixing roads in Chicago. This is a video. Jay says, I believe our Boston Tea Party predecessors would just stare dumbfounded. I think about that all the time. We already fought a battle. Didn't we already fight a war, a battle overpaying all these exorbitant taxes, didn't we? And where did that get us? Where did that get us? Look at us. Look at how we live today. We're, all of our money going back to the government. You go out and you work hard. Most people have nothing to show for it. I'm gonna play a video for you. This is a young man who is like, how do I survive? How do I get through life? And I know young people right now are they're very disillusioned. It used to be when we were younger, at least me growing up in the 80s, I would look at my parents, I would think, we're doing pretty darn good. We got a nice house, we've got nice cars. My parents, weren't struggling. My stepfather had a good job. My mom kind of dabbled here and there in real estate. My parents owned a lot of real estate. They rented out. And, we did pretty good. And at the, I was brainwashed, I think, by that, as were a lot of kids, back in the 80s, where life was actually pretty darn good. And of course, there was struggles that went on, and not everybody did as well as other people. And some people did more. That's a capital society for you. But I remember thinking, that's what everybody's life is like. You go to school, you work, you have a nice home, you have a family. That's just what life is. But it's very different for young people now. Young people now, it's like, how do they survive? You think you get a starter job, and a lot of adults are working those starter jobs now that high school kids used to do. Now kids are going off, for your colleges. They're owing a couple $100,000, in student loans that they'll never be able to pay off, no matter what kind of job, that they have, unless they're maybe, gosh, I think medical school right now, it's about a $300,000 loan to go through medical school. Some people might say it's more. I know to become an attorney, my son's father was an attorney when he passed away. He spent about $200,000 in student loans, and he didn't even go, to some of the bigger, more expensive schools. And so it's very expensive to get that type of education, which you're all forced to do these days. Because remember, there was a period of time when people looked down on anyone in the trades. And so people weren't going to those trade schools or learning the trades. And now, of course, we're kind of working on rebounding from that, where people who work in the trades are some of the highest paid people now, and doing, quite honestly, the best. Who would have ever thought that would happen? I'm glad to see it happening. But I'll tell you what, it's so different now. Kids, where do they live? If you're a young person just starting out, you have to have 2, 3, 4 roommates just to survive. It's crazy. But either way, enough talking for me. I'm going to play this video for you.
Tell us to stop eating out now and rent $2,000 a month. Oh, save for retirement. You can barely save for next week. Go buy a house. Every house is $500,000, brother. I'm not asking for a handout, man. We're asking for a freaking fair shot at life. Our parents did not work harder than we work right now. They were simply just given a better chance. Their wages covered their lives, their bills, their hobbies, their passions. Our wages barely cover our freaking bills for the month, dude. No amount of budgeting can ever fix a system designed to keep us down. We're doing the best that we can, and yet it feels like the outcome has already been decided.
All right. I can't hear the video. I know one of you did the video echo. Peggy says echoes. I'm still working on my audio. I can't hear a darn thing, so I apologize if it echoed. But hopefully you were able to hear what he said. Annette said, sad, we are slaves to our government. It is sad. It is really sad. The only way to break away from that really is to go off grid. And there are people who go off grid. I'm not going to say it's an easy life by any means. And to some degree, you're still under the thumb of the government when you go off grid. A lot of times there's people in this country who have lost their children. CPS has come and threatened to take away their kids because they're living off grid, and God forbid your children, live off the land. And as long as you're still educating them and they're still going to school and they're well fed, well taken care of, I don't see what the problem is. But the government doesn't want you to be off grid. They don't want you to be able to live without them, of course. And Annette says, fair shot indeed. And I know I missed a comment up here. And Donna says that's why so many young couples don't get married. The guy works, the woman stays home and collects welfare and Medicaid. Jay says, and on one income in the 80s. And, I was a single mother. My son's father and I split up when my son was about 7, 8, something along those lines. And he moved away. He moved to another state to work. And so, I was here and I raised my son pretty much by myself. And I worked 3 jobs. I refused to go on Medicaid. I refused to take state aid. I worked. And I missed out on a lot of really great moments in my son's life because I worked so hard. But had I not worked so hard, he wouldn't have had, state aid only pays for so much if you're, an American. Now, if you're, of course, a migrant, it's a whole different story. But, I worked 3 jobs. I worked bartended at night. I worked as a recruiter during the day. There's a lot of different things, I had to do. And it wasn't easy by any means, but you do what you have to do. Let's see here. Lori says, oh my, the echoes on videos. Did it echo? Are they all echoing? I don't know. I can probably, let me do something here really quick. I might be able to fix the echoing on the videos. Let's see. We'll see if this works. Video that I play. I hope it does. I'm having all kinds of audio problems today, so I am sorry about that. But is it still echoing, or can you hear me okay? Hopefully you can at least hear me okay, because I've got some more videos to show, so I don't want it to be echoing. Robert says Europe, Asia, generational home ownership. Yeah, which is something that we should do here, but that's generally not how it happens here in the United States, does it? You have your own home. Your parents have their own home. When they pass away, you sell their home or rent it out, something along those lines, and then it continues to change. And of course, home ownership is changing anyway. We'll talk more about that next week because I'm spending way too much time chatting about these things. But it's been on my mind a lot, how young people are trying to survive and what's happening. And it's just a terrible situation that we're dealing with. I don't know how adults get by, quite honestly, let alone young people these days. It's just a completely different societal, norm that they've had to grow up to and be accustomed to, where everything is just so crazy expensive. If you think about it, the life of a young person, if you get up, let's say on your way to work, you want to stop and get a coffee. That's what, $6, $7, $8 for a coffee. Let's say you want to go through a drive-through and get breakfast. What is that? $7, $8 for a breakfast at a fast food drive-through. Not that you should be doing that anyway. And then you go to work, then you've got to eat lunch, right? You might take a sack lunch. Maybe you go out and eat lunch. That's another, $10 or more for lunch, depending on where you go. It's just, I really don't know. It's hard to find anything to rent definitely under $1,000 in a safe area. At one point I was renting a couple years ago when I first moved to Wing Haven, and I was paying $2,500 a month to rent an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. It was absolutely insane. I don't know how people survive. Jay says, might be feedback if your mic is on while playing the videos. It could be. I'll try to turn my mic off next time the video plays, since I can't hear them anyway. Robert says, next will be 100-year loans. Japan has up to 300-year loans. Basically renting with equity. I had no idea that they did it that way. There's a lot of things I don't understand about different nations and how they do that. Poland, I know, does something similar. And back, especially when they were under communism, they leased the land to people. No one ever owned their own land. They leased the land to people for X number of years. And Donna says, so many young ones can afford those tattoos, but then can't pay their rent. Yeah, I think people's priorities are just completely out of order these days. A lot of people are paying their cell phone bills and paying their bar bills before they pay their rent. And it's a big, ugly cycle. And what I really worry about is that someday when all of us 80s generation and the baby boomers are gone, what are these young people going to do? How are they going to survive? Are they all just going to be homeless? I don't know. But it really worries me because out of the people I see, there's a lot of young people who go to work and have a great job. But I see a lot more young people who are really struggling, who have no idea what direction they're going in. I don't know where we went wrong, but we definitely did go wrong. And Jay says rentals are higher than a house payments, but most can't afford the high interest rates, much less the down payment. That's exactly right, Jay. It is easier really to rent something and pay a high rent rate than it is to go through sometimes that loan process. Now, I have a friend who works in the mortgage industry, and she helped me when it came to the mortgage on this house. And I'll tell you what, it's more difficult when you're self-employed. to get a mortgage and to get a loan and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, they're a great company, and I'm going to have her on one day soon to talk about and kind of simplify the process of home ownership. But yeah, if you have to have 20% down or more, it definitely, or more, makes things very difficult, no question about it. For this house, I had to put half down, half down, and very, lucky to have the opportunity to be able to do that. And I know most people can't. And it's really very difficult. It is extremely difficult right now to survive. And Jay says, I think the younger folks want their parents' comfort level starting out. That's exactly right, Jay. That's exactly right. It's that sense of entitlement that I should have it all right now. I'm fresh out of high school, but I should have a nice house and a nice car. I shouldn't have to start at the bottom and work my way up. And then when they don't want to start at the bottom and work their way up, they want all of this stuff given to them instantly. Then what do you think happens? Then they end up just not doing anything. It's definitely a big problem in our society. And so I'm gonna, let's see here. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about. I know I've been chatting for a really long time, and you guys are gonna be tired of hearing from me. A couple other things I want to talk about before we start talking about the aliens, and we are definitely going to talk about the aliens. I mentioned this earlier that Pam Bondi, and I saved a video of Pam Bondi, but even though my videos aren't working that well, I don't see it here. I don't think it's saved. But either way, Pam Bondi made a statement yesterday. She gave a press conference that we, the United States, we have a $50 million bounty on the head of Nicolas Maduro, of course, the president of Venezuela. Why? Because he conspired with, drug traffickers, human traffickers, violent gang members. And we all know this is true. We've known it's been true for a really long time. Now, if you recall, we talked about this quite some time ago, all the Venezuelan gangs that are in the United States. Well, what happened? Now, the story goes, at least according to Nicolas Maduro, is that Joe Biden, our president at the time, asked him to send these Venezuelan gang members here. So what he did was he opened the prisons in Venezuela, and he sent all of their gang members here to the United States. And then once they were here, once, of course, Donald Trump became president and actually started fighting crime, well, guess what happens? They don't take them back. They don't want to take them back. We're paying money trying to work out deals to send these criminals back. So we'll see how all that comes around. And Donna, aliens walk among us. Yes, they do. Yes, they certainly do. So I want to talk about that with Maduro really quick, just kind of following up on some old stories. Another old story we're going to follow up on very briefly is Candace Owens. Remember how Candace Owens was going after Macron, saying that Brigitte Macron was a man, and that and then Macron filed lawsuit. They filed 22 different lawsuits against Candace Owens. Do you know they dropped them all? They dropped all the lawsuits of defamation against Candace Owens. It was 22 different counts of defamation, completely dropped. Why? Because they cannot prove that she's really a woman. That's why. A very interesting story. And, Candace Owens never let up. She stuck to her guns, and she said, I've talked to the doctor. I, talked to people who work at the doctor's office. I know that Brigitte Macron is a man who had surgery and is now walking around parading as France's first lady when really she's a transgender. But the bigger story is that she was 39 years old, he, whichever it is, when she met Macron, who was only 14 years old. So that's the bigger story, is the pedophilia that's involved. It's not about him being trans. It's about the fact that it was grooming. He was her student, his student. Absolutely crazy story. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of movies made about this at some point. Robert says, what do you think? Death is simply the death of the physical vessel. The soul carries on in different dimensions. So we need to raise our vibes to communicate with our loved ones that have transitioned to other dimensions. I don't know about that, Robert. Some people try to spin that into there is a God, of course. I certainly believe in God. I believe in heaven. But there's people who have a combination of science and religion to say that, well, heaven is just that other dimension, that other plane that people live on. I know one thing. I have seen things in my life to know that there is something beyond this earth. And it's not just the time that I was sick and I saw what I know were angels to take the woman who passed away next to me, but I also have seen other entities as well. I've seen them. As a matter of fact, I saw one in the very house I'm standing in now, several weeks ago. And I saw it clear as day. Wasn't scary, but I saw it, as clear as day. Not anyone I know. It was just a really weird situation. And that's happened to me maybe 3, 4 times in my lifetime. One time, my mom and I both saw a guy together. We were, excuse me, I've told the story before where we were driving down the highway about 11 o'clock at night, and a guy walked out very slowly and run. He walked very, very slowly right in front of our car on the highway out in the middle of nowhere. Or he made it almost across, but when he got right in the middle of the car, he just turned and looked at us. And it was the strangest thing. We both were like, we're freaking out. She's swerving, trying not to hit this guy. He goes right through the car. It is the craziest situation. We saw it with our own eyes, and I didn't see it alone. There is definitely something more. Now, what that something more is, I don't know. But what I think it is, I think my own personal experiences is that I think that if you were able to see in every dimension around you, our eyes can only see certain things, just like animals can only see certain things. Other beings can only see certain things. I think if we could see all of the different dimensions around us right now, we would see all kinds of stuff. We would see people, we would see extraterrestrials, we would see who knows what, animals, I don't even know. But there are things that survive every plane, every existence, and we just simply cannot see them or necessarily feel them. And like I said, when I started the show, you guys are going to think I'm crazier than you already do by the end of the show. So I wanted to talk about that. I'm going to talk about, I know I'm going way over. I don't have to work today or do anything after this. So I know I'm going way over for those folks who wish I would hurry up and get to the point. We spent a lot of time talking about some of those other things. I want to talk about the anti-inflammatory diet. Then we're going to talk about the UFOs. And if you don't have time to stick around, of course, you can always come back later. You can, watch the show 24/7, of course. But I'll tell you, you guys know about my recent health struggles. Tammy says, I don't think I could stay in the same house if I have seen a spiritual being. Because you know what, Tammy, they are everywhere. I can guarantee you, wherever you live, they are there. You just haven't seen them yet. And I think sometimes I don't know what makes it where some people can see and some people can't. Now, what I saw was just a flash, but it was as real could get. And I've only seen that a couple times in my life. But, it is definitely real. Either that or, I don't know. I don't take drugs and I don't drink. So I don't think it's me, but you never know. So anyway, so you guys know I've been dealing with these different health struggles. And I think a lot of my health problems really started from inflammation. Inflammation can turn into a lot of different things. It can weaken your body. It can make you susceptible to other diseases. And I know it sounds crazy, but I was reading this report and it said it was a big study done by a big university that said inflammation is the cause of all disease. And by that, and when I read the study, it wasn't necessarily that you got the inflammation, all of a sudden, all diseases are caused by inflammation, but inflammation leads to the disease process. How about that? It leads to the disease process. It makes your body weak. And I'll tell you, if you look at the list of illnesses caused by inflammation, including cancer, including multiple sclerosis, and all of these other different health conditions, it is pretty darn scary. And then you start thinking about it like, okay, so inflammation led to all of these different, and of course, there's parasitic, there's a lot of different things that lead to cancer and different illnesses. Inflammation, of course, being number one, believe it or not, number one in many, if not all, illnesses. It plays a role in the formation of probably all illnesses. And if you think about it, we're doing it to ourselves because we're getting inflammation, causing inflammation in our body by what we do. If you're a smoker, guess what? Smoking causes inflammation. If you eat sugar is one of the number one highest causes of inflammation, but so are a lot of our other foods as well, cause a lot of inflammation. We're going to go down that list. If you drink alcohol, causes inflammation. The air you breathe in, if it's not healthy air, guess what? It causes inflammation. Imagine that. And Donna said, COVID started a lot of my problems. Yeah, because COVID really caused. I was reading a report just yesterday about inflammation and how you can go to your doctor's office, you can get a test. There's two different ones. You can get one that's a high sensitivity C reactive protein test, which is going to scan you for various types of inflammation, like that leads to a higher risk of heart disease. Then you can get just a protein, the same test without the high sensitivity. I just can't talk right today. The same test, it's the, again, high sensitivity. I'll never be able to remember it again. I just had this test done on, what day is today? Friday. I had this test done on Wednesday. And my inflammation marker came back as moderate. And I'm not surprised by that at all because it's been moderate. I've been tested for this a while back. See, why am I not, my brain is not working. Do any of you guys remember what I just said? I looked at this 1,000 times yesterday because I got, as a matter of fact, you know what? I got the test of C reactive protein. There we go. C reactive protein. So you can get the high sensitivity C reactive protein or just a C reactive protein, C by the letter C. And so that's something that you can go to your doctor and do. They will give you an idea of what the inflammation level is in your body. And it should be less than, I think it's 0.1%. It should be less than, you should have zero inflammation in your body. I had 6.2. So I'm pretty high on the scale. And I'm not surprised at all because I don't do the things I should do. If you're not exercising, you're not working out, inflammation builds in your body. If you're eating the wrong foods, inflammation builds. And as that inflammation is building in your cytokines, remember that word from our COVID days, are reacting to it, your body becomes immune compromised. You're allowing all these disease processes to come in. When you get up in the morning or get up from sitting and your body is stiff, your joints are stiff, that's inflammation. You know, if you're getting headaches, a lot of times, inflammation, body aches, inflammation. It all comes back to inflammation, including your teeth, periodontal disease, inflammation. It all comes back to inflammation and parasites. You have to work on your body to get rid of the parasites, get rid of the inflammation. And I was reading these C reactive protein tests from COVID patients that were absolutely off the charts, completely off the charts. You know, most of the time it should be between, 0 and 10. And these people were scoring like 250, way, way off the charts. COVID was a huge, huge, cause of severe inflammation, which is what led to all of the complications, of course, from COVID. It goes back to those cytokine storms where the cytokines come in, they're attacking your cells and causing more inflammation. Tammy says, do you take ivermectin? I can't remember if you have, I did all through the COVID years and then I stopped because they changed the way ivermectin is made. Now there's other forms you can get, but when I used to take the paste, it was like that horse, paste with a horse on it. They've changed a lot of the ingredients. And now some of the ingredients that are in that ivermectin paste are pretty harmful for you. So I quit doing that. I do take this here, it's wormwood, black walnut, whole cloves. We've talked about that before. And there's a lot of different things we could do to attempt to alkalize our body. Instead of our body being acidic from inflammation, you alkalize your body. We're going to talk about that also. Donna says the big bad virus is what starts a lot of inflammation like COVID. Yes, also true. So think about this. Now, here are some pro-inflammatory foods you have to avoid. These foods cause inflammation. Now, anything I'm telling you, it's not rocket science. We all know, don't we? We all know that we should avoid sugar. We all know that. We should avoid diet sodas and things like that. We all know we should be eating whole foods, right? Drinking a lot of clean water, but most of us don't have time. It's very difficult to maintain that regimen, isn't it? Until you get sick and then you're like, wow, maybe I need to lay off the sugar and the sweets and the starchy foods and all this other stuff and the red meats. So here are the things. If you're really looking to get your body back on track, you need to follow an anti-inflammatory diet. Of course, there's a lot of anti-inflammatory diets out there, but some of the bigger ones that are most common would be the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet. Those are all good anti-inflammatory diets you can follow. So for me personally, I love the Mediterranean diet. It's very hard to stick to because I'm busy, I'm running around. It's a lot easier to grab a donut on the way out the door than it is to make an egg white omelet, right? And it's hard to buy convenience foods that are healthy because they put a bunch of junk in it to make it survive on the shelf a little bit longer than what it should. So if you want to be healthy, you have to take the time out to be healthy. It's not easy. Sleep, of course, one of those things we're going to get to. So here are some things that you should not eat. Do not eat these if you plan on being on the anti-inflammatory diet. These are foods that cause inflammation and cause disease. Red meat and organ meat. So that's going to be your hamburger, beef, pork, lamb, liver, gizzards, and other organ meats. Now, there will be people who will step up and say red meat isn't as harmful for you as the government wants us to believe. So take it how you want. Processed meats. Now, there's a backstory here. Processed meats: bacon, beef, pork, hot dogs, chicken, turkey, hot dogs, salami, bologna, other processed meats. Now, the reason why is because whenever they make lunch meat, they take, let's say, if you're going to make a ham lunch meat or turkey lunch meat, they take the turkey or the ham fresh, they grind it up into a paste, and then they add in all these preservatives and flavorings. Well, many of those flavorings and preservatives are very bad for you. It's very, very high in salt and sodium. So you definitely don't want that in your diet, but you can get healthy lunch meats. Like I go to a Mennonite store here in town where their lunch meats are healthy. They don't have all that they don't last as long, but they don't have all of that processed stuff added into it. Donna says, Grandma lived to be 99, but she ate a lot of homegrown foods. Well, exactly, Donna. You know, my great grandma, as a matter of fact, all my grandparents, for the most part, lived to be in their 90s, all but one. And I'll tell you what, they all cooked at home. None of them ate fast food ever. And they are very, very rarely, they all were heavy diets in tomatoes, onions, garlic, fresh baked breads, and didn't really even, as a matter of fact, now when I think about it, most of my grandparents weren't even big bread eaters. They would eat some bread, but they ate a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. They had gardens, they went to produce stands, and, they lived a much healthier life because that's how they grew up. That's what they were accustomed to. My grandma, she was not a big meat eater, one of my grandmas, and she ate like a tomato and an onion, I think pretty much every day. Donna says she also ate a lot of fresh meat. Yeah, fresh meat. And Dottie says, say no to nitrates. I think that if you eat fresh meat, it makes all the difference. But when you think about the meat, that's why I said when it came to the red meat, if you're going to your regular commercial grocery store and you're buying red meat, you're not just getting red meat. You're getting dyes. You're getting it pumped full of stuff. Same with chicken. If you go to a regular grocery store and you're buying chicken, it's being pumped full of all kinds of stuff. And a lot of that stuff is not good for you. A lot of it is very high sodium. They pump these things to make them look fresher, to make them look prettier, with a lot of sodium and different nitrates and other things. So if you go to a butcher and you buy your red meat or other meats, I think you're a whole lot better off. No question about it. All that stuff they add is just hurting us. So some other things that are, again, bad for you: added fats and sugar, mayonnaise, margarine, butter, vegetable oil. We all know we shouldn't be eating those things. And if you're going to, of course they say eat olive oil. I still think that real butter, not the butter you buy in the store, real natural butter is not going to cause your body to have that inflammation. But the butter that you're getting at the store is not really butter. Mayonnaise, of course, margarine, vegetable oil. Margarine is like plastic. We all know not to eat that. Sugars, added sugars, sugar sweetened soda, punch, lemonade, chocolate candy bars, mixed candy bars, non-chocolate candy, jams, jellies, preserves, syrup, dried or canned fruit with sugar. All very sweet, all have lots of processing going on, a lot of really bad things there for you. Refried grains, cold and cooked breakfast cereal. I don't know why they call them refried grains. I guess because they're so heavily processed. So cold cooked breakfast cereal, white, dark processed, low fiber bread, bagels, English muffins, rolls, cornbread, white rice, pasta, pancakes, waffles, crackers, tortillas, popcorn, pretzels, cookies, brownies, donuts, cake pie, sweet rolls, coffee cakes, granola bars. Now, we all know we shouldn't be eating those things. And I will bet you that those things on that list right there, you've probably had several times this week, several times, because a lot of people are eating cold breakfast cereal. You are eating white bread, or what they said, dark processed, low fiber bread. And it's hard. It's hard. I have a bread maker. When I make bread at home, you know what? I'm told, oh, it doesn't taste right. It doesn't taste right. Yeah, because it's healthy. That's why it doesn't taste right. That stuff you get at the grocery store, that's not bread. Anything that lives on the shelf for a week or two, that's not good for you. It is not good for you. If your bread doesn't mold in a day, it's not good for you. Think about that. Donna says sugar bread. You got that right. And so starchy vegetables, potatoes, either French fried, scallop, baked, boiled, mashed, sweet potatoes, yams, and potato chips. And that's because these things add, they affect your glycemic index. Now, some people say sweet potatoes are fine. Now, here they're saying on an anti-inflammatory diet, you should not eat sweet potatoes. I don't know. I think sweet potatoes, I'm not an expert, but I would think if you eat a sweet potato out of your garden or a sweet potato and you don't add anything to it, I would think it would be better than the alternative. But we all know, and we've always known all of our lives, that white potatoes are bad for you. They're very starchy. They're not good for you, especially if you want to fight inflammation. Now, things you should be eating, this is a lot easier. And I'll tell you, it's pretty daunting to think these are the only things I should be eating. Trust me. Tomatoes, of course, that includes tomato juice, tomato sauce, tomato paste, salsa, preferably low salt content, low sodium. Leafy greens, of course, kale, spinach, lettuce, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, parsley, watercress. I am one of those people, believe it or not. I love Brussels sprouts. I really do. It's one of my favorite vegetables. I just don't eat enough of it. And when I eat a salad, I tend to put cheese and bacon bits and all this junk croutons. That is not a healthy salad. Back when I was younger and I was always under 100 pounds, I would make salads quite a bit, and I would just use lemon juice. I would just spritz a little bit of lemon juice from a lemon on it, and I liked it. I don't know if I can ever go back to that again. I don't guess I have the need to be a size 0 these days like I did when I was under 30. And of course, fruits. We know fruits: apples, pears, apple juice or cider, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, cherries. Now, you might think those have a lot of sugar in them, but they don't cause inflammation. Because remember, we're not talking about fats. We're not talking about carbs. We're talking about items that do not cause inflammation. And that would be anything apple related, as long as it doesn't have sugar added. And of course, onion, zucchini, eggplant. But again, berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberry, cherries. I love fruit. I really do. Fruit is one of my favorite things. You can have pineapples, honeydew, grapes, kiwi, watermelon, lemon, grapefruit, oranges, orange juice, fresh orange juice, grapefruit juice, fresh grapefruit juice, grape juice, other real fruit juice. But that's the key, real fruit juice, not the stuff you go to the grocery store and buy, and it's like 1% fruit juice, the rest of it's sugar water. Don't buy that stuff. Protein. Some of the proteins you should be eating are chicken and turkey, with or without the skin. If you're just looking to stay from an anti-inflammatory diet, you want to stay away from those anti-inflammatory foods, you can have the skin. A lot of people I know avoid the skin for fat reasons. Fish, tuna fish, salmon, light or dark meat fish, breaded fish cakes or fish sticks, as long as they are made with real fish and not the fake stuff. That's where we go. Real whole foods, nuts, peanut butter, peanuts. High fat, low fat dairy, of course, whole, 2% milk, 1% skim milk, cream, high fat, low fat ice cream, high fat and low fat yogurt, cream cheese, high fat and low fat cheeses, low fat cottage or ricotta cheese. I'm just reading from this anti-inflammatory diet list, by the way, and I can provide a copy of this to any of you. It's a big PDF file because I'm going to be following this diet. I mean, I've tried medications. I've tried many rounds of antibiotics, many rounds of steroids. Nothing helps. Nothing helps. And instead of my body getting better, it's just getting worse. I have more lymph nodes swollen than I had before. I have many lung nodules now, when before I only had 3. Now they're teeny tiny and they'll probably go away, but it's probably caused from, guess what? Inflammation. So I'm going to be doing my best to stick to this. You can have coffee, but you have to remember coffee, again, you have to be careful what you add to it. It's not that coffee is bad. It's the stuff you add to it is bad. Same for tea. Tea, you can have herbal tea, you can have regular tea. But when you add sugar to your tea or sugar to your coffee, that's when you're getting yourself in trouble, including some of those very sugary, different types of syrups and stuff people use. Of course, beans. We all know beans. That's one thing I love, every type of bean. String beans, it says peas, lima beans, lentils, other beans, but no soy. Soy actually is very bad for your body. I have always tried to do my best to avoid soy or soy products, especially if you're a female. Soy really messes with your hormones, and I've always attempted to avoid soy. And let's see here, not a fan of low fat. Let's see here. Let me backtrack a little bit on some comments. Let's see. Donna says sugar-based bread or sugar is bad. Yes, sugar is bad. Donna says need more sunshine, vitamin D. A lack of vitamin D absolutely does lead to a lot of health problems. I read countless studies where people develop different types of cancers because their D3 was low. You got to get out and get yourself some D3, but you also have to be careful because a lot of studies also show if you take too much vitamin D, it can also be toxic to your body. So it's good to have those levels checked to make sure you're in the right spot. Mandy says roasted chickpeas are a great substitute for croutons on a salad. I've never tried that, Mandy, but I do love chickpeas. Donna says Brussels sprouts don't like me. I'm glad they like me because I love Brussels sprouts. And Donna says not a fan of low fat. Yeah, you don't want to buy products that if you go to the store and you buy products that are labeled low fat, sugar free, you've got to look at the ingredients because a lot of those products may not have fat, but they have other really harmful ingredients. A lot of them may not have sugar, but they have a lot of other harmful ingredients. So that's something to think about. Coffee has mold. Mold, of course, very bad for you. Also, you have to be very careful where you buy your coffee, what source. Jennifer says the same thing. Coffee, good morning, Jennifer, has mold. Buy mold-free coffee. I didn't know you could buy mold-free coffee. Excuse me. I've been buying, if you know what Christopher Bean is, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I've been buying this organic coffee like syrup from Christopher Bean online. And it comes in these I buy the little 4-ounce bottles, and it comes in different flavors. There's no sugar, no additives. They do source mold-free as well as organic coffee beans. And so it's supposed to be the healthier alternative. I was using pods, but when I first started having some illness issues, oh my goodness, I stopped. Hold on a second, guys. I'm getting a warning here. If I don't fix it right now, oops, everything's going to shut off. So let me see if I can fix this problem here really quick. I'm talking way longer than I had planned to. And there we go. I add a second battery backup. But anyway, back to business. So Christopher Bean, if you look him up online, if you're interested, I can send you a referral code where you'll get $10 off your first shipment. I love the stuff. It comes in a bazillion different flavors. It doesn't add any sugar or additives or preservatives. It doesn't last long. So, I would only suggest buying 1 or 2 bottles at a time because it only is supposed to last like 14 days. But it is really good stuff. And I think it's a great alternative. When I first wasn't feeling well and I was getting like stomach ulcers and things, the only thing I had done different is I've never drank coffee in my life. I've never liked coffee, but I started drinking coffee pods, flavored coffee pods, because I was trying to give myself a little bit of a caffeine boost in the mornings. Because back when I was on a different show at the time, it was really hard. I work late at night. It's hard to get up and get going in the morning. So I was trying to think, okay, well, I don't really drink soda. So what are the alternatives, to tea? Because I was getting kind of tired of tea. And I decided to drink these coffee pods. And I started getting all these ulcers, and I blamed it on the coffee pods because those coffee pods, you have no idea what's in there. Absolutely no idea. And if you break one open, it looks like instant coffee. What kind of additives or preservatives are added, to that? And I'll tell you what, when I stopped using the coffee pods, the ulcers went away. So whether that was or was not related, I don't know. But I started ordering the Christopher Bean coffee liquid. It's like a liquid. It's probably like, I don't know. I know somebody who made some themselves, and they use pressed coffee and added some liquid to it and added a little bit of flavoring. But check them out. Donna says, I drink acid-free coffee. I didn't know there was such thing as acid-free coffee. Thank you for that, Donna. I had no idea. So again, I think I've gone over most of this, different types of food, but we don't need a list to tell us what we should and should not eat, do we? We all know you should be eating whole foods, right? Whole foods. If you want to cut down on inflammation and cut down on disease, go back to the basics. And you know what? I'm sorry to say this, and I know not everybody can afford necessarily to go to a produce stand or go to a butcher. But if you want real whole foods, and if you're able to afford it and you're able to get healthy again, stay away from those big grocery stores. I would love to say to go to your Schnucks or your Walmart or whatever big box grocery store you have in your area and buy some broccoli or some watermelon, but tomatoes, we know, I don't call that stuff real food. These stores have GMO foods. We know they do. We know they do. They're not buying their food from a farmer down the road. Now, sometimes you can go into some stores, especially smaller stores like a Deerberg's or even a Schnucks, where they'll say locally grown, and sometimes you can do that. But most of the time, the food you're going to get at a grocery store is going to be GMO foods. It's going to be coated with wax. It's going to be sprayed with pesticides, all sorts of things that make it not real food. And you could look at, let's say, a stalk of broccoli at one of these grocery stores or a tomato and think, well, that's anti-inflammatory. Well, it's not anti-inflammatory after they've sprayed it and cultivated it with all these chemicals. So please try to find a good source locally to buy your fruits and vegetables. That is the best advice I can ever give anyone. Find your local market. You can buy things. You don't have to grow stuff yourself to last through the winter. You might think, okay, well, that's great in the summer, but what do I do in the winter? You know what? You don't have to have a garden to be able to can. Go to your local produce market and buy. They sell, peaches by the case. They sell tomatoes by the case. You can go on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of local growers will advertise on Facebook Marketplace that you can buy cases, of tomatoes or other different types of fruit or gallons of berries. Just go and buy them from these people. And then you come back home and you can your jellies and jams with your berries without using all that sugar. You go to your butcher or a local farmer and you get meat and you package it and you freeze it or freeze dry it, whatever you want to do to get you through those winter months. You go to your produce stand, you can buy, let's say, corn as an example, if you like corn, or you can go and buy your tomatoes, make your tomato sauce, whatever it is you want to do. There are alternatives to going to these big grocery stores. We don't have to be sick. We don't. And God forbid, if you smoke, please quit smoking. It is harmful to your body in so many different ways. I know there's studies that say not caffeine, that nicotine is actually good for you in some ways. It prevents some disease. There are ways to get nicotine in your body without smoking. Smoking is a huge contributor, of course, to inflammation, as is drinking sodas, sugar, anything sugary, all those chemicals in diet sodas, very bad for you. And teeth, God forbid, your teeth. If you're having problems with your teeth, you're, getting tooth decay, you're needing to go and get fillings put in, or you're going to need a root canal. Inflammation, that's all caused by inflammation. There's a lot of studies that prove when you go on an anti-inflammatory diet, when you change the way you eat, you add those whole foods, real meats and things back in your diet, your dental problems will go away. I know that sounds crazy and I'm carrying on about it a lot longer than I probably should. Of course, there's a lot of other things, herbs, turmeric, ginger, garlic, onion, saffron, pepper, thyme, oregano, that are also really good for anti-inflammatory. Our bodies have to have some salt, by the way. Excuse me. You can't cut salt out completely. Your body needs salt to regulate. So low salt, low sodium, that is the key. Low salt, low sodium. But, I thought this was kind of funny, and I'm going to wrap this anti-inflammatory talk up here in just a minute. We're going to get on to the UFOs that a lot of people have messaged me about that are waiting to talk about. But we're all in a hurry. We're all busy. You might think, I don't have time to prepare all of this food. I don't have time to do that. I'm going to go to Taco Bell for dinner tonight because it's Friday and I'm tired and I don't have time to go home and cook some healthy chicken. Maybe I don't have money to buy healthy chicken. I've got $5, $10, and I'm going to go to Taco Bell tonight or whatever. So, I was surprised to find this, but here's some options. Here's some options for those of us who live a very busy lifestyle. So if you want to go to fast food, here are some things you can choose. At Chick-fil-A, you can get a Greek yogurt parfait with granola, a fruit cup. These are all not anti-inflammatory. These are less inflammatory, better than other options. If you have to get food, better than other options. So you can go to Chick-fil-A, you can get a grilled chicken sandwich on a multigrain bun with lettuce and tomato. You can get grilled nuggets. You can get a Chick-fil-A cool wrap, a Cobb salad with grilled chicken, a spicy Southwest salad with grilled chicken. I don't go to Chick-fil-A very often. There's no one anywhere. There's one nowhere in my area. but I love their spicy Southwest salad. You can get the market salad, side salad, kale crunch side, Buddy Fruits applesauce. Believe it or not, you can go to Taco Bell. Who would have thought? Taco Bell, Chipotle Ranch grilled chicken burrito, believe it or not, a Fiesta veggie burrito, a black bean power menu bowl. And so that's some options. Subway, you can get what they call a no bready bowl. A no bready bowl. I've never heard of that. I don't really go to Subway, but they have grilled or rotisserie style chicken. You can get oven roasted turkey or tuna. You can get a wrap. You can get a salad. So there are some options still some options if you want to go and get fast food. It's not that you can't go, because that's when we get into trouble, when we tell ourselves we can't do something. And then it stalls out the process. You backtrack, you end up in a big old mess. So you can still get fast food. You just have to be careful. And have you noticed fast food places, they don't want us to be healthy. They just don't. Remember back in the day when all of these different fast food places had more salad options and they had more grilled chicken? I remember when I was really young, I would go to Wendy's all the time and get their grilled chicken sandwich. I would take the bun off and I would just eat the piece of grilled chicken. Burger King, excuse me, I used to go there and the same thing. I'd get their grilled chicken sandwich. I'd take the bun off. I'd just eat the chicken. None of these places have that anymore. And if you do find a grilled chicken sandwich or a grilled chicken wrap at one of these fast food places, it doesn't even taste like grilled chicken anymore. It's like a weird soggy. It's like, how do you make chicken breast soggy? It's the strangest thing. It's like real soft and weird. And I refuse to eat it. Nancy says, hearing a lot about mushroom coffee. Me too, Nancy. I haven't really looked into it, but I have also. Donna, these younger people drinking all these foo-foo coffees with caramel and whipped cream and syrup. I know, Donna. I would love all those foo-foo coffees, but I don't even do it. I just don't go there because I know what will happen to me if I do. I don't need all that extra gook in my daily routine, but I'm going to stick to these anti-inflammatory diets. We all have to do our best to try to be healthy. You know, it'll be an experiment. We'll see if it helps. Next time I go back and get my next CT scan, if all those many scattered lung nodules are gone, then we'll know that it works. All right, guys, we're going to move on. I know I'm going way over today. I don't have to work today. After we're the show, I'm done, so we can just talk. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to do a lot of other things in the next. I get hair all over my face. It's like everywhere. I should start wearing hairspray so my hair doesn't fly all over my face. And so anyway, lots to talk about today. We're going to be talking about some other things in the weeks coming. I got some guests lined out. They're going to come in and talk to us about some different issues. Jennifer Cobb, who was on the comment line earlier. I'm not sure if she's still there. She's going to join us at some point. She's a nutritionist. So I know she's got a lot to talk about. She knows everything that's going on. Donna says Burger King used to have a veggie burger. Yeah, Donna, I liked Burger King's veggie burger. But, of course, anything healthy, it's got to go, right? It has to go. So let's get to the aliens. I want to talk about the aliens. Tulsi Gabbard made that statement recently that she is doing her best, her and Anna Paulina Luna, to release the UAP files. They want full disclosure. Now, they're not saying what full disclosure is. Tulsi Gabbard, Anna Paulina Luna, they're not telling us, hey, there's aliens out there. We want to talk about it. It's nothing like that. They're just saying that the American people have the right to know what the research shows us. What are the files show us? What's in the background of all these UAP, UFO searches that we've done, studies that we've done. And if you go back and you listen to the David Grush, and if you want to look up David Grush, his last name is spelled Grush, David Grush. You can go out and find these very long videos of his testimony. Now, he is a former intelligence officer. He was part of the research into, extraterrestrial life, UFOs. And he's got some really fantastic things that he has divulged under oath. He has talked about this under oath. So I'm going to play a little snapshot of his testimony. I've got two videos to show you. One is, when you look at it, it looks unbelievable. You're going to say there is no way in a million years is that real. And it may not be. I can't verify it. I wasn't there. But there is an expert who you can hear talking in the video that is trying to explain there are no anomalies here. This is what people really saw. And I'm not going to show the video today, but I watched a video the other day. Remember how in Miami not too long ago, they had that incident where all these police cars were there. Do you remember that? We talked about it at the time and showed the videos at the time. And they said that there were these multiple witnesses. So there were 10-foot aliens that just appeared. And then in the middle of this shopping mall. People were running around like crazy, like a movie set. There were over 100 police cars that arrived. Now, the official story, when they put everything on lockdown, they said, oh, it was just teens out of control, and then they said, oh, the apparitions that we see on video, because there's plenty of video, they said that is just holograms. It's not video editing. We know it's not video editing, but they say those are holograms. Somebody brought a box back in a backpack, they claim, that was just holograms. Now, what happened to this person in this backpack with holograms? Why have they not ever resurfaced? Why have they not spoken out and talked about the holograms? And I was watching a video the other day that somebody said, do you know that day in Miami, they have about 120 police officers on patrol at any given time. That day when this happened, every officer was called to the scene in Miami at this shopping center. And so this person in this interview was saying that why, if this was just a bunch of teens out of control, why would they call 120 different vehicles, to arrive at the scene and surround the shopping center if that's all there was? Why would they close off the shopping center and not allow anyone in or out if it was just a few teens, out of control? We know, we're Americans, we see teens out of control all the time, all across our country, and never have they had that type of response anywhere at any time, not even when we have shootings, not even when we have massive looting going on. We don't see a big city like Miami pulling all of their resources together and going in surrounding a place. There was something more to the story. And there were police officers who gave accounts before they were told not to, who said, yes, this is what I saw. I saw these 10-foot beings. Now, were they holograms? We could all agree, I think there were 10-foot beings there. This was not about rowdy kids. However, were they holograms? That's the big question. And I don't know the answer, to that question, of course. None of us do. But I'm going to play a little snippet of David Grush's, one of his interviews at a congressional hearing when he's asked about extraterrestrial life. Now remember, he's a former intelligence officer. He worked for the government for many, many years. He's very well liked, very well thought of, in his community and amongst his peers. And he was brought into this testimony to give his story about things that he's witnessed, things that he's seen. He is under oath. And keep in mind, before you watch this video, the things that he is saying under oath, he has never once, nobody has ever said he committed perjury. They have never tried to charge him or hold him in contempt. Everyone who heard his testimony accepts it as his testimony. He's under oath. If they said he lied about these government programs, he would be in prison right now, but he's not. He's a free man who continues to talk about his experiences. And there's a YouTube video with David Grush. It's probably about 2 hours long where you can hear his entire testimony, not just this snippet. If this echoes, please let me know in the comments. I will do my best to fix the echo.
Intelligent extraterrestrials.
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next hearing that we have, but who in the government, either what agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, et cetera, do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Super. Thank you. And I yield back.
Okay. I muted my microphone so I could play that video. Hopefully that kept the echo down. You guys said there's no echo. Thank you for letting me know. Good to see you this morning, Margie. And as you could see from David Grush's interview there, what is he telling us? That's why I keep trying to say the government has already told us. They've already told us that extraterrestrial life exists. We already know this. In my opinion, we already know this. I don't think anyone's denying it. And people will fight with me all day long and say, that's not true. The government has never told us anything. What do you need for the government to tell you? Do you need Donald Trump right now today to come out with a press conference and say aliens are real? Everything you've ever heard is true. UFOs are visiting our planet every day. He's not going to come out and do that. And even if he did, like I said yesterday, there would be a large percentage of the population who would say he's being manipulated. The shadow government's telling him what he has to say. We don't believe it. It's part of a psyop. He's trying to psyop Elon Musk or something crazy. People still wouldn't believe it. The government can tell us aliens exist, extraterrestrial life exists, but we're not going to believe it. We cannot wrap our heads around something that sounds so crazy, right? And if you guys remember Senator Kennedy? I don't know if you guys saw this video. I've played it before on the show many times, in fact, because it's one of the best statements I've heard coming out of somebody who officially probably knows. Sorry, I don't know what is going on. I keep getting junk in my eyes. My hair, I'm guessing. And remember back when the Chinese balloon was making its way across the United States? Remember that? And everybody was watching it on TV. I saw it. In fact, I was driving across the Poplar Street Bridge in St. Louis, and I saw the Chinese balloon. Remember that big white balloon floating across the country? Everyone saw it. People were coming out of their house and videotaping it. We're like, why don't they just shoot it down? And then all of a sudden, remember, there were all kinds of different shapes and objects being seen all over the world, all over the country. All of a sudden, we had these different, what we call UFO formations. We had the one, if you've studied UFOs and you've talked to and read about UFOs, you know that there's different shapes that people see regularly. There's the big black, like octagon or square. I don't know what shape you want to call that. The big solid black one. There's the one that looks like a sphere, where it's kind of glass looking and kind of looks like a sphere, silvery glass. And then they have the one that looks like a cigarette, I'm sorry, I'm getting my words all mixed up. Cigar, my smoking apparatus name's all confused. It looks like a big silver cigar. Well, we were seeing all of them. Do you remember that? All at once. And it's like everybody was just going crazy. Like, oh my God, is that an experiment? Somebody said, oh, it was the Chinese students and they were creating a science project and they launched all these balloons and some of them looked like UFOs. All this was going on in the exact same time period. And if you recall, there were a couple that were shot down. You remember that? And one of them that was shot down over the Yukon, they had a search and recovery team that went in. And last I heard, they never were able to recover, that whatever it was that went down. And a lot of people believed, and I believe, that I don't know what was going on with that Chinese balloon. I will never know. But what I do know is that what I do believe is that the other objects we've seen were true UFOs. Now, I don't know what was going on, why it all happened at the same time or anything else. But Senator Kennedy made a statement when the press was going crazy. They wanted answers, like what's going on? This was shot down over the Yukon. Where is it? What are we going to find? Are there alien bodies? What is happening? And so I'm going to play to you Senator Kennedy's response to talk about this. And when you first hear this, what he's talking about when he's talking about these, 17, 18, 19 years, he's talking about how long China has been doing this weather balloon program where they have sent weather balloons into our country to spy on us, to pick up our communications, to take photos, etc. So that's what he's talking about. Then he goes on and he tells people, you know what? Because they asked him very pointedly, what do you think, about this alleged UFO being shot down in the Yukon? So you can listen to this for yourself. I've heard it 1,000 times over, and it's a really good clip.
This has been going on for a long time. At least 2017, and last week we were told 2019. That's what I took away from it today.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Lock your doors tonight.
Thank you.
So Senator Kennedy knows what's out there. He knows what's out there. He knew what was going on. Lock up your doors, folks. You know, if it were him, he'd be locking his doors because he knows what's out there. And one of the best examples of that, again, was in Las Vegas. Donna says if you brought back people from, let's say, the 1300s and showed them a smartphone, they would think it was magic or evil. You're right, Donna. They would burn you at the stake for being a witch. That's what would happen if they saw that type of technology back then. And so we, of course, have to open our minds as well to the technology that may exist that we have no understanding of. Instead of saying it's magic, it's evil, it doesn't exist, it's a figment of our imaginations, it's a hologram. You know, you just got to wrap around your head that there are things that we cannot explain that do happen that we cannot explain. And the explanation is something that maybe our brains cannot yet decipher because we're so used to just living in our own world and maybe thinking that other things exist, but not really knowing. You know, I know if I was standing here right now and a UFO landed in my front yard and some aliens got out, I don't think I would run and hide. I think I would be looking at them like, are they actors? Is it a hologram? You know, what's happening? So it's like the reactions of different people in these situations. It's impossible for us to put ourselves in their place because while we think we would run and we would hide, in my back of my head, I would be thinking, you can't run and hide from the aliens. They probably got some technology or some sense that you can't hide from. And a lot of people say when they've seen these beings that they felt very strange. I've watched a lot of videos about people who've been abducted or have had these very close, you know, situations where they were approached by these beings. And they said, you know, it's consistent. Don't look them in the eye. If you look them in the eye, you're like in a trance. Don't do it. It's pretty interesting. But one of the best examples I think we have in modern day times, it's our modern Roswell to some degree. And we don't know the outcome. We don't know what ever happened really. And I've talked about this before. I've played this one video before. Then I'm going to play a brand new video that I've never seen until today. And you've probably never seen it either. I just saw it was released this morning and I just haven't, I'm like, oh, that's a great timing since we're going to be talking about it today. But the first video I'm going to show you is about that encounter in Las Vegas, if you recall it, where there was a police officer giving someone a citation. And on his body cam footage, you see this green orb float down from the sky. And he's looking at it and he's like, what is that? You know, he saw it with his own eyes. He's like, what in the world was that? And then just a couple minutes later, a call comes in from a teenager. You've all heard the call. And I'm getting ready to play you the 911 call right now. And I've played this before just a couple weeks ago and a couple times before that. But this is the best example we have of a modern day Roswell that we can see with our eyes. Because guess what we have now? We have cell phones, right? And what happens when a UFO lands in your backyard? You get your cell phone out and you take video. Now, there will be people who are very skeptical, including you guys, including myself, who are going to say, what you see in this video cannot possibly be real. Somebody's putting this on. You know, what is this video footage? It's just AI. And it may be, but there's a lot of experts out there who say this is real footage of real extraterrestrials. And this teen that calls in, the story was this teen, his younger brother, his mom and dad, they're all home. They're in Las Vegas. They hear this big boom. They go out in their backyard and they see a spaceship has crashed in their backyard. And they see these beings hiding in the bushes, two beings hiding in the bushes. And they're freaking out. You know, they call 911. They're reporting it. One of them's taking a video. And then these people just kind of disappear. You don't hear anything more from them. But you hear stories from their neighbors. You know, their neighbors say, yeah, I saw the big green orb come down. I heard the big boom. I heard the big crash. There were other neighbors who also reported seeing these same beings. There was another man not too far from this crash site who called in, I think it was an hour or 2 hours after this, who said that, you know, called 911 and said, oh, I see, you know, this being in my whatever animal he thought it was in his yard. So this is a longer story than what we have to talk about today. But I do believe it's our modern Roswell. It is a crash that can be substantiated. This family has since come forward and given several interviews, which I've played before. But I'm showing you this video because this is what these kids allege to have taken a video of these subjects in their yard. I've never heard any mention of what happened to the UFO. The way I understood it is it disappeared and it just wasn't there anymore. The kid later on came back and showed a video of where it had landed. It wasn't very big, maybe about 6 feet by 6 feet, wasn't very big at all. So again, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not telling you 100% this is real because I don't know. I can only tell you what this kid saw, and you just have to take it for what it is. And let's see here. I'm going to try to get, I've got 2 videos. I don't want to play the wrong one.
There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually, we terrified of it.
So there's 2 people or 2 subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot. 9 feet, 10 foot, I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes, they have big eyes, like I can explain it, and big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
Okay.
Okay, so take that however you want. You know, it's okay to be skeptical. I'm skeptical of it. I'm like, there's part of me still thinks, is it AI? But this family claims this was a real live video that they took. They took this video. They made this 911 call. They have never backed down on their story. They have never changed their story. They disappeared for a while. Then they came back and talked more about it. They were told not to talk about it, but they came back and they did give a little more context later on. And the entire family saw these beings. The entire family was home. I don't know what happened. I just think it's awfully strange that there are so many pieces to this puzzle. Generally, when somebody sees something, you're driving down the highway and you see a UFO, or some of these encounters that people talk about, they were alone in the woods. There's no one to recall what they saw, but this is a different story in Las Vegas because we had the police officer video cam that saw the green orb very clearly crashing to the ground. I wasn't able to find that video this morning. I do have it though. I'm going to look for that and I can post that on social media. But there's so much more to that story. I absolutely do believe what they saw. Donna says it could be another country experiment. You're right, Donna. And see, that's just it. That's why we all have to be skeptical because we don't know. People might say, well, it was a hologram. The green orb crashing down was a hologram. These beings that were videotaped in this kid's backyard are holograms, but it's really interesting though that other neighbors heard it. They saw it. They reported on it. They've given interviews. Another man in a completely different area saw the same thing just a short time later. So to me, it's our modern day Roswell. Not enough people pay attention to the story or get enough credibility to what this family saw. Now, what I'm going to show you next, I have a ton of skepticism about. I really do. A ton of skepticism, and I'm sure you will too, because these beings look completely different than those. But one thing they have in common is they're all tall and grayish like. So I'm going to show you this next video. You're going to hear a guy talking over it. He is one of the world's top experts when it comes to, not only these different sightings, but video editing. And he's going to talk about how this is actually a real video. It's not AI. It's not been digitized. It's not been altered. It's just a real live video. So, you can believe him. You don't have to believe him. I don't know what I think personally. So you just have to see it for yourself.
We can take a video and look at whether or not there is an artificial artifact added to it or not. And in this case, we can definitively say to a degree of scientific certainty that this entity, this thing in the video is there in the physical reality in which the Kenmore family is also there. Like, this is so critical because you can clearly see through the slots in the fence that there is a leg motion moving from the right to the left side of the screen. And clearly it is behind there. So this isn't just like a head floating in space. This is a head of that is somehow that does not have full opacity, that the opacity of the head of the shadow is only at about 33% opacity versus a normal shadow, which would be at 100% opacity, or an object in the screen, which is at 100%. And this isn't anything that you did. It's just what you were able to determine that this shadow being or this being in the shadows, possibly creating its own shadow or smoky filter or cloaking technique, is not only cloaking itself from the people there, but cloaking itself from the camera itself, in that it's minimizing our ability to identify pixels inside of that shadow.
Okay, so allegedly these are the same beings that were in Miami, the same type of extraterrestrial that they saw in Miami. Now, were they holograms? Is this a hologram? Is this AI? Is it video editing? We don't know. We weren't there. Unless you're there, you really just don't know. But I think it's fairly interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Donald Trump again got on that stage today and he said, it's all true. It's all true. There are several different life forms visiting our planet. Yes, they walk amongst us. Yes, they visit. Yes, they live in our lakes and waters or underground in some facility. Somebody said, I think it's Lake Tuscaloosa. Does that sound right? That there's a big alien facility underneath there. There's so many different stories you can go out and read. Piedmont, Missouri. If you want to talk about a local connection, Piedmont, Missouri. There have been numerous people over the years, including my son's grandma, his dad's mother, who back when she was a child saw what she thought was a UFO emerge out of Clearwater Lake. There's a lot of sightings in the city of Piedmont, Missouri. And a lot of them include the Clearwater Lake. So it is kind of interesting when you think about it. And what are the beings? Where are they coming from? Why are they here? But our government knows all of that, don't they? They know everything there is to know. They don't want you to know. They've done their best job to keep it from being known. Now, strangely enough, Schumer was a big proponent of releasing Chuck Schumer of releasing all of the UFO files. He really wanted these UAP hearings, and it was a lot of Republicans that fought against it, quite honestly. But now we have Tulsi Gabbard, we have Anna Paulina Luna fighting again to go back and reveal the information. But here's something interesting, and I'm not downing Donald Trump, of course, but we really expected a little more disclosure with a Trump presidency. And instead, what has happened is there was supposed to be a UAP hearing in July. I think it was July 19th, I believe, was supposed to be when that hearing continued. And it was postponed until September. And so we'll see. Does it happen in September? There's a lot of back talk out there where Donald Trump, his administration, does not want any more information being released about any type of UFOs, extraterrestrial life, and that they want to stop these UAP hearings. Now, that could be 100% wrong. That could be propaganda to cause his followers, of course, to not support him. So I don't want to listen to any of that chatter. But we will see what happens. We didn't have the UAP hearing in July like it was supposed to be, now scheduled for September. I'm going to find out the date. I haven't seen a date yet of when that's going to take place in September. But you know what? We're going to be right on it. We're going to watch it. If it gets delayed again, that might tell us something. But in the meantime, if this is even something you want to entertain at all as being a possibility, go back and take the time out this weekend, do your homework, go on YouTube, go whatever, video channel you want, watch David Grush's entire testimony. You can see multiple interviews from him in different places as well. But the testimony is special because it's under oath. Under oath. He has never been accused of perjury. He's never been accused of lying. He gave this testimony under oath as to the United States government programs and the information we have, the things he's seen. Tucker Carlson, as you guys may recall, did an interview once, and he interviewed another gentleman. You can go out and find that interview also, who worked for the government, who said that he has personally witnessed United States service people who were killed by these different spacecrafts, that are allegedly are alien in nature, that between like the pressure, a signal they emitted, things along those lines. So there's a lot more to the story. And I 90% believe that all of this stuff we're hearing is true. I don't know about these videos. I guess maybe my brain can't process that as being true, what we're seeing. It's very difficult unless you see it with your own eyes to process it. But I do think there is life amongst us. I do think that there are certain types of alien creatures that do walk amongst us, that you probably have come across, some of us at some point in our lives, and we didn't even know. That sounds crazy. I told you at the beginning of the show, one of the first things I said is I'm going to sound like a crazy person today. But I think the world is too vast. The universe is too big for us to think we're here alone. Now, whether this giant comet hurtling towards Earth and arriving in November is a hostile alien ship, I don't know. That one I'm not sure I'm buying into. Good morning, Rob. But that's it for me today. That's all I've got to talk about. I think it's fascinating, quite honestly, to talk about extra because it's that mystery. We don't know. It's a real life mystery. That's why I like it. We think we know what we know. We hear these different experts talk about it. Elon Musk, on the flip side, has said that in all of their space missions, they've never seen anything. He does not believe aliens exist. Strangely enough, I would expect that he would believe, but that's been his official statement. But you just got to leave it to your own imagination. Think what you think. But go out and watch that David Grush interview, Grush, David Grush interview, and see what you think after that, because it is some compelling testimony for sure. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging in with me. I know it's been a long morning. Thank you, Karen. I don't usually talk this long, but I don't have anything to do today other than some stuff around the house, which gave me a little bit more time to talk. But I do hope you guys have a really fantastic weekend. Please stay cool. Again, heat index is over 100 degrees in this area this weekend, probably in your area too. Stay safe, stay cool, and I will see you guys all on Monday. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Have a good day, everyone.